Nick Ferrari has done a very interesting interview with Esther McVey, and I'm going to play some of it in a few minutes. But she talks about standing up for people's freedoms. That's exactly what she's been elected to do. She talks about quoting the poem, which has caused offence, as an analogy. And she keeps repeating this line that it's an analogy, and no doubt she's had advice. She makes the point that the Labour government is no longer a Labour government, but an extreme socialist government. I think she's playing around with words here. I entirely agree that the smoking ban seems an overreach and that could have unexpected consequences. Equally, I entirely agree that cutting the winter fuel allowance for pensioners can have unexpected consequences. And the speed with which these things are being wheeled out, I entirely agree, is inappropriate. What I don't agree with is that one should draw an analogy between the Labour government and Hitler, because that's what she's doing by quoting this poem. And it doesn't really matter how she tries to justify it. Let me play you a section of the interview, because I think it's a very interesting interview, and it exposes her arrogance, her stubbornness, and quite frankly, the reason why she should not be an MP. An MP is there to listen to her constituents and to other MPs, to the arguments which are put forward in the House of Commons and elsewhere, and to draw conclusions. To stubbornly cling to her own slogans and not to listen and not to accept that she's caused offence is to demonstrate quite clearly why she is incapable of doing the job that she's been elected to, and why she should go. Frankly, this is a resignation issue. Listen to what she's
been taking away people's freedoms.
I get what you're saying. I really do, Esther. But you can't honestly say that the way they're treating pensioners is how they treated communists, or the way they're treating smokers.
No. You're falling into the same trap, Nick.
But that's
this
how
is
the
a
poem
much
spans
wider.
out, Esther.
No. This is about a parable. This is a parable, and it's about how people can slowly, incrementally remove freedoms. It's known as an analogy. And that's what it was. So no offence was intended. None was intent, and I certainly would never have meant that. But what I do want people to wake up to, and I mean this very, very seriously, is this socialist government we've got. So they're now saying there's a £22 billion hole so they can inflict high taxes and confiscate people's land. That's where they're going. So they've made all manner of changes, the cronyism that they're appointing people into what should be a non-biased, impartial civil service. I think people need to start waking up to Starmer.
I've known you for a long time. I know you wouldn't knowingly cause offence to any group or any people. You have here, accidentally. If you had your time over, would you have quoted this poem?
I have said, and I put out on a tweet, I won't be removing this tweet. I was
but
brought
then you're
up that
knowingly
this was
causing
a very
offence, Esther.
powerful.
But Esther,
no, and I apologise if I have made it caused any
indeed.
upset.
But why would you knowingly cause offence?
I never intended that.
But why would you knowingly?
Is,
Esther, that's my point. Knowing that you have, and I say again, I've known you forever. Knowing that you have caused offence. By the way, I don't hold with it being repugnant. I think that's an overstretching of the case. Would you put it out again, knowing you'd cause offence?
I'd never knowingly want to cause offence, but I tell you what I won't be doing, Nick. This is a very, very powerful parable. And if I can't talk about a very powerful parable about removing freedoms, I think we need to be very, very careful about freedom of speech.
Now, Ferrari says that he doesn't think that the poem, quoting the poem, is repugnant. I disagree with him.
By the way, I don't hold with it being repugnant. I think that's an overstretching of the case.
In fact, I need to address this issue of the repugnancy before I finish this. So I think it is something worth dealing with. Ferrari said that he didn't find Esther's use of this poem repugnant, whereas various figures have actually described it not only as ill-considered but as repugnant specifically. Why? Anti-Semitism is repugnant for many reasons, even if it is inadvertent, as in this case. I'm sure it was inadvertent. But her use of a Holocaust-related poem to criticize a proposed smoking ban, that is thoughtless, certainly. Is it repugnant? Yes, I think so. Anti-Semitism at its core perpetuates harmful stereotypes. It trivializes the immense suffering endured by the Jewish people during the Holocaust, and it often minimizes the historical significance of the Holocaust itself. In McVey's case, the controversy arose because she jumped on a bandwagon and quoted Martin Niemeyer's famous post-Holocaust poem, First They Came, which addresses the dangers of silence in the face of tyranny. To criticize a proposed smoking ban is extraordinary. The problem with this analogy is that it inappropriately equates the systemic persecution, the murder, and the torture of millions of Jews by the Nazis in a public health with a public health policy, which this trivializes in the most egregious way the historical atrocities committed during the Holocaust. It makes them, it's about trivializing reality. And such comparisons is not a parable. Such comparisons are deeply offensive because they diminish the unique and the horrific nature of the Holocaust itself, reducing it to a mere rhetorical device for contemporary political advantage. And Jewish organizations, public figures who have criticized McVey, who have called her comments ill-considered and repugnant, who have said that her comments are in poor taste, should also say that they risk minimizing the historical significance of the Holocaust, and that is why it is repugnant, and that is why Nick Ferrari is wrong, and that's why he doesn't recognize the serious harm that McVey is doing. Because he has known her for so long, and he recognizes, this is a buddy. She wouldn't mean to be anti-Semitic. She wouldn't mean to be so offensive. And he gives her climb down room. But he's missing the point. The point is that she is minimizing reality. Holocaust survivors and Jewish leaders have pointed out that the analogy is tasteless, but it also contributes to the broader desensitization about anti-Semitism. And at this particular time, when people around the world are finding it very hard to distinguish between criticizing Israel and being anti-Semitic, she could not have caused this problem at a worse time. And to minimize the hurt she has generated, the hurt that she has caused, is to demonstrate that she is unfit for public office. And so inadvertent anti-Semitism, like inadvertent racism, that is the point of the issue. Racism is racism, whether you intend it or not. Anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism, whether you intend it or not. It is identified by the recipient, not by the person who does the tirade of verbal abuse. This insensitivity towards the Jewish community, this diminishing of the gravity of a major historical event should never be forgotten or never reduced to a rhetorical flourish. That is her offence. And not to recognize that it is repugnant, I'm afraid, seriously compromises Nick Ferrari as well. Ferrari says that because people have now expressed concerns about feeling offended, deeply offended, by what she calls the analogy between the Holocaust and the smoking ban, that she should now withdraw the tweet. She apologises if she has caused offence. That isn't an apology. That's a whinge, and it's a non-apology. And I think that should be struck out of the language. I think we should respond really badly when people say, "I'm sorry if you feel upset." That's not an apology. That's a waste of language, and it's a distortion of English. So she does that. So she's not apologised, and she says that she's already said. She points backwards. She's already said that she's not going to remove the tweet. And Ferrari points out very clearly, now it is recognised as offensive. You can't say that you didn't mean to be offensive. She refuses to delete the tweet. She says she never knowingly caused offence. Now she knows she's caused offence and she's still refusing to delete the tweet. I think that's a rather brilliant analysis by Nick Ferrari, and I think Esther McVey will need to think very carefully about how she responds.